Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session of Quispamsis Town Council on July 16th, 2024. Councillor Olson, may I have the treaty acknowledgement, please? Oh, I guess he's not here, so we're just going to hold off for a second. Okay, we'll have the approval of the agenda, please. All those in favor, if you want to raise your hand. It's been moved by Councillor Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Donovan. All those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Councillor Olson, I'm going to ask that you do the treaty acknowledgement, please.
We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists in the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq people whose ancestors, along with the Passamaquoddy tribes, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. We would like to take this moment to pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias, and always in the best interest of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. I have a few remarks this evening. And of course, none of us are strangers to the humid, hot weather that we are experiencing these days, but it has been a little more on the extreme side lately. And a heat warning has been issued and is expected to be here all through tomorrow as well. So with temperatures hitting possibly between 36 and 40 degrees. So please take all necessary precautions, drinking lots of water, scheduling outdoor activities for cooler times of the day, if that happens, and taking lots of breaks when outdoors. We also have our beaches at Meenan's Cove, Gondola Point, and of course the 97.3 wave pool at the Hugh-plex, and our new addition, the Firefly Splash Pad, to help you keep cool. So summer can create an atmosphere of relaxation and excitement for many of us to enjoy the outdoors. And I know that we don't want to waste even a second of the nice weather outdoors, but please remember that rushing to your destination can be dangerous to others, especially if you're behind the wheel of a car or a moped or a motorcycle. I've received numerous calls, too many, about speeders on our roads and residential streets. So please take the time, look at the posted speed limits. They are not there as a suggestion, they are posted as limits. They're designed to keep drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, everybody in our community safe. Speeders put their lives and the lives of innocent people in danger. These people are your family members, your family, your friends, and your neighbors. So please slow down. And I think of all the messages, I think this one is repeated probably every single council meeting. And every week in between, I still get calls, and I'm sure many of our council do as well. So if you do see any speeders, please try to get the license plate number and report it to our local police. The 2024 Olympic Games are just around the corner, and we are so proud of a member of our community to be part of Team Canada. Craig Thorne of Quispamsis will compete in the 110-meter hurdles in Paris. Craig attended local schools, grew up here in Quispamsis, and graduated from KVHS. He won his second straight national title with a gold medal at the Bell Track and Field Trials a few weeks ago. So stay tuned. Craig, congratulations. We are more than excited for you, and we will be watching as the Olympics begin at the beginning of August. Also, I'd like to thank once again the organizers of this year's East Coast Games in June. It was a terrific three-day event in our region with hundreds of athletes participating. Quispamsis was proud to host the girls' softball and swimming events this year. Our Arts and Culture Park summer series events are underway, and actually we just had to close the door because there is a concert going on outside there this evening. We have music in the park tonight, and throughout July and August we will have movement in the park, movies in the park, and music in the park. And these events are scheduled and they are on our website. So thank you to our summer programming staff who organize and manage these events, and to all the participants. And I have to say, I went to Donnie and the Monarchs last Tuesday night in the park, and it was standing room only, and there were a lot of people up dancing. So we hope that everyone will enjoy the summer nights right here in Quispamsis. The next big event that's coming up is a lot of clean fun. So don't miss our International Mud Day celebration. It's coming up on July 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Chelsea Bike Park. You can play in a giant mud pit, make mud pies, and more. Good, not so clean fun, but it's a messy good time. And please join us for New Brunswick Day at the Arts and Culture Park. It's Monday, August 5th from 6:30 to 8:30 right outside here at the band area. It's a free event with live music, giant games, and a walk with David Goss. It's a great way for us to come together as a community and celebrate our beautiful province. I hope to see you there. Next on our agenda, I will ask for a disclosure of interests. Seeing there are none, we will move on to presentations. This evening, we have NB Power's presentation, Rebuilding a Smart Grid, with our guest, Bob Scott, Director, Public Relations, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement, and Belinda Elliott-Belecki, Communication Specialist in New Brunswick. And please come to the podium. Welcome to both of you.
Can you hear me okay? Yes. So my name is Christina Schneider. Belinda wasn't able to join us tonight, but thank you, Mayor and Town Council. I truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to you tonight. And my role here is I am a senior manager in customer care. However, I am looking after taking the lead on deploying smart meters in the province. So I'm looking forward to sharing a bit of information with you, giving you an opportunity to ask questions. There's only a few slides. You won't be here to look at slides for a long time, and there'll be lots of chance for you to ask questions once I present. So thanks again for the opportunity. So we are embarking on a journey of upgrading our grid. Our technology is changing, customer expectations are changing, and we have a big project ahead of us. And we have to deploy all smart meters across the province. We touch every customer in the province, which is over 365,000. And you can appreciate the challenge that can cause when you're trying to meet timelines and get around efficiently and safely to the homes. So we have divided our province into 3 areas. And today we are still continuing into Area 1. So Area 1 is about 79% completed. And we do plan on moving to Area 2, July 22nd, which starts with the Rossay area. So we did start deployment on November 1st, 2023. And like I said, we've got many already done in Area 1. We've had a lot of learnings. We're going to Area 2 in July, starting in July, and then we will also be moving to Area 3 with a project completion date of approximately fall of 2025. So in addition to having some benefits for NB Power, there's definitely benefits for our customers. And this part is near and dear to our heart because, as you know, technology has evolved. You think about, the phones that we used to use maybe 20 years ago, and now the phones that we use are different. And expectations are getting data instantly or having information pretty much at your fingertips. And one of the things that smart meters will give our customers is power in their own hands to manage their electricity usage. So once you get your smart meter, you're going to be able to view an online portal that's going to share your kilowatt hour usage in 15-minute intervals for the day prior. So you'll be able to go in there and see where are your peaks in your usage every 15 minutes. So you'll be able to know, what can I do to manage my energy at your fingertips through the portal? And part of it that I really like is that not only is it kilowatt hour view, because sometimes kilowatt hours, it doesn't mean too much to our customers, but dollar value matters. So you can actually toggle on the portal and see, okay, my peak was a certain amount of kilowatt hours the day before. However, what does that mean in money? And what can I do in certain times of day to reduce my energy costs? And a real benefit I can share, because I have all kinds of stories where, and I'm sure it's happened to a few of you, that you get your power bill at the end of the month and you can't believe how high it is at times. Now you're going to be able to see your energy usage throughout the month in intervals and be able to manage that before you get your bill at the end of the month. So that's really exciting to us for a benefit for customers. Next slide, please. And another exciting area that we're going to improve is you're going to have the ability to have energy alerts. So you can have automatic energy alerts that will give you a notification if your usage is over 30%, and you can actually go into the portal and customize the alerts yourself as well to manage it on when do you want to know that your power bill is going up based on what's important to you. So that will be available as well through the portal. Next slide. And one of the things we've learned as we've deployed throughout the province in Area 1 is there is a lot of misinformation about smart meters. And what we're looking to do, especially NB Power, is to get accurate information out to our customers so they can make informed decisions. A lot of the time, information travels through word of mouth or it's on social media. Sometimes one negative comment on social media can end up feeling like there's a lot of customers complaining, when in fact, a fun fact I can share, we have about a 92% positive to neutral sentiment from our customers on deployment so far. So even if you do see a negative comment on social media, it's not necessarily the majority. We do have some people who are negative or don't want smart meters, and our goal is to make sure that we're out in front of people to get them the right information, not only on our website, but through community sessions like this, so that people have accurate information instead of doing their own research and trying to find, flaws with smart meters. We do know that many of your constituents may have questions and concerns, and we would like to offer public information sessions to your community if you think it's valuable. We have gone through and done several public information sessions around different areas of the province. Like I said, we're going to start in Rossay on July 22nd. So if you do think it's valuable and you're hearing things from your community and you want to set up a session with us, we can certainly make that happen and share even more information with your community members so you're not thinking you have to answer all the questions. Yes.
Perfect.
That's
Thank
a
you very
few
much for
slides.
the presentation. Certainly,
Welcome.
it's a sign of the times when we continually try to advance where we are, and what we did in the past doesn't work today. So it's nice to see that NB Power is also recognizing that and trying to make things more efficient for all of us. So I'm going to turn it over to councillors to ask some questions.
For sure.
Councillor Bigger.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. Nice to have you guys here. Just a couple of questions. One is about the energy usage alerts and the online portal. Is that app driven, or is it just through like a browser on your desktop or your phone browser or whatever? Is it app driven or no?
It's not app driven, it's
Okay.
browser.
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah.
to clarify that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sorry, just a couple other quick things. Also, I live in a multi-unit building. I live in there's whatever, 42 units or something in my building. Everyone pays their own, power. So I assume that the capacity for this isn't hindered by multi-unit buildings. Wherever a meter exists, where a smart meter could go, is that
Yes.
right? Yeah.
All of our meters will be changed to smart meters.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, the last thing is just in relation to some reporting I saw I think it was out of Texas,
Okay.
where smart meters had like a two-way capacity, where not only can you get an alert, but you can set rules and come into agreement with the power utility around rules that will automatically lower your energy output that would mitigate your bill. And I just wonder if that's I doubt that's part of our smart meter program currently, but I wonder if that's on the horizon at all, that thinking at all.
It is two-way communication. In terms of you being able to lower your capacity or making that request, I haven't heard that being on the horizon. However, that usage that you're going to be able to see, you'll be able to know where you can toggle your usage that way too.
Right.
Yeah.
But remote access, for example, to a smart thermostat or something like that, that's not currently, that has nothing to do with,
That's right.
because I get it, the meter just tells you what's going on, of
Right.
course. So.
And we don't know when we see the peak or when we see the usage, what is it in your home
Right.
taking that, right? So we don't have a way to go in there and do that. But you would be able to know, okay, if I turn my thermostat to
Right,
this, I'd be able to see when it peaked and to curb
Okay.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Next in line, Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I hate to put you on the spot, but it's just a question.
No problem.
I've heard of the smart meters. I've never actually delved into it to see what it is, and just at face value, it doesn't seem to have any negatives. I know you said that sometimes there's some negative sort of connotations and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, maybe this is an opportunity for you to maybe take a common myth about it and tell us why it's a myth, maybe. Like, I'm just curious as to what is so negative about it. Just from what I'm seeing, I don't know, right?
Yeah. So I do want to emphasize that, 92% or so are positive and neutral. It's only a small percentage who maybe don't have the facts or they believe in the myths. And one thing I can share is privacy. So one of the concerns that we did receive from customers are privacy concerns. Are you going to be able to see what I'm using in my home? Are you going to know what's going on in my home? And the answer is no. It's two-way communication with meter data only. So that's one concern that was brought forward. The other concern that was brought forward was the wireless infrastructure and the frequency and the health concerns. And we've shared on our website, the comparison of smart meters with other things that we have in our society. And it's the World Health Organization endorses our smart meters for health, and you can get that information right on our website. So that's some of the myths that we're trying to get ahead of and get accurate information out there to our customers.
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, Christine and Mr. Scott, for coming tonight and sharing your information. So I have a couple of questions. First is, how long does it take to replace a meter?
Yes.
So they're going to come to my home, and they're going to take that meter off the outside of my house,
Right.
where mine is.
Yes.
Is it the same size? Am I going to have stain on my siding because the meters are this big and mine was that big?
Excellent
So
questions.
that is one. What are you going to do with the old meters? Are they recyclable? Is there plans for the old meters so that we know what's happening with them, like going in the landfill? And my last question is, a lot of people are on monthly billing,
Yes.
and how going on a smart meter might affect your monthly billing. I know you said you could control it. I mean, I don't want to say, oh, I'm going to turn the heat down because I looked
Right.
at it's not good, so I'm going to
Or the cooling
I'm going
down.
to be cold for a little while. And I realize it's not only heat; it's much more than that. Just so those are my questions. Thank you.
Yes, great questions. First, I'll talk to the meter installation. So it's a very brief momentary outage that you would receive when the meter's being installed, and there would be no damage or no damage or visual change in it being placed on the siding of your home. So they're the same size as our other meters in terms of fitting into the meter base. There are times, I can tell you, that something is happening behind the meter and it's not caused by the meter installation. Some of these meters have been on homes for several years and they've never been changed. We do, of course, random inspections on meters and change meters frequently for Measurement Canada standards. However, there's sometimes that things are going on behind the meter that we don't know about till we change the meter, and there could be a break there. If there's a break, what's required is a disconnection, an electrician, and then a reconnection, and MB Power looks after all of that. The impact to you as a customer would be a longer time without power, depending on when we can get there to disconnect, when we can get the electrician lined up, when we can get it back out there to reconnect. Does that answer that first question? Okay. I do want to, before I answer your second question, there's one slide that I didn't see that I thought was really important because I wanted to share with all of you that we have a very consistent, diligent customer communication process ahead of the smart meter installation. So it's not going to be a surprise to customers when we go out there and actually install the meter. We're going to be sending letters, we're going to be sending emails, we're going to be attempting to call. We're also going to be knocking on their door ahead of the smart meter installation. So if you're home and you're in the middle of a work project or something and you don't want that momentary outage, if you answer the door, we can plan that accordingly. So I wanted to share that. I didn't see it in the slide, and I wanted to make sure I didn't leave without sharing that. In terms of recycling the meters, we would recycle those. I don't have the details on that, but I can certainly get them for you if you're interested. They wouldn't just go to a landfill. We would have to bring them back and dispose of them properly according to environmental standards for sure. And the third question was the different consumption you were saying on your bill. So were you asking more so, does it impact rates, or were you asking more so, how can you control your consumption differently?
My question was really around the equalized billing.
Okay.
A lot of people, plan their budget yearly
Right.
based on $300 a month or $250, whatever it is. And will this smart meter automatically adjust your equalized billing?
Okay.
Will MB Power look at that and say, oh, okay, they're spending more, or what? I mean, they do it now, I know, but
Right.
maybe the smart meter can do something better.
So it wouldn't impact the equalized billing. That's a really good question, because your billing is still going to be monthly, and you're still going to see that amount that you're consuming compared to the amount that you're actually paying. And the smart meter, even though it has intelligence to see, okay, I'm trending 30% higher or 30% lower, it wouldn't adjust your billing for you at this stage. Maybe in the future, we might be able to look at something like that, but at this stage, we wouldn't, because it's still a 30-month billing. But you would still see it on your bills every month. Great questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I foresee this as being something that's going to help not just NB Power, but all New Brunswickers eventually. And where I'm going to is with people switching over, or some people switching over to electric vehicles, and we're looking at, are you rebuilding Mactaquac, how many nuclear reactors you're putting in? If we can keep our energy levels stable, then, because right now you have to make as much power to hit the spikes. Mm-hmm. And if we actually know as consumers where our spikes are, whether it's charging our electric vehicle, whether it's putting the wash in later on or the dryer in later on, I mean, we're all part of that function. So I think eventually once everybody's on there, there will be some people that don't like it, always. But I think I see a great potential for this, not just for NB Power, but also for the consumer. Because one, if we can get rid of the spikes, your energy costs should remain lower, as well. So no, I think this is great. And I know you did the presentation, I don't know how many years ago, but I've seen it before. So I don't know if it was pre-COVID and then it got delayed for the COVID. I can't remember, but
I really appreciate that comment, though, because it's definitely the two-way communication is going to give us more intelligence on the grid. You know, we have, customers want choice. Some of our customers want to get solar panels, and we call it net metering at MB Power, but, you know, you have solar panels, you're producing some energy, so you don't have to take so much energy from MB Power and it costs more. We're going to have visibility on that billing and on that side to be able to manage our grid more smartly, so I'm glad you mentioned that.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming. It was a great presentation, very interesting. I am happy to hear that you know, you are planning on kind of a detail, like the details of the rollout in terms of making sure people are aware. Just to kind of follow up on some of the comments, what tools and training are you planning on, I guess, developing for people that maybe aren't as tech savvy? So after the fact, after they're installed, and now we want people to actually use them and capitalize on them. And so are there particular tools in specifically around, you know, a big portion of the population that might not be as tech savvy as maybe a younger generation that has grown up with computers?
Very good point, very good point. We do have a team of customer care advisors. When customers call in to say, you know, how can I look at this portal and how can I manage my consumption and how can I get a statement of my usage, we as customer care advisors would walk the customer through that. I definitely wouldn't be opposed to having some sort of information or show and tell about how to use the portal. We've done that before at home shows as well, where customers come up and they have questions about their energy, and we'll show them the website and show them how to set up an online account and go paperless. So I definitely could see that would be beneficial for like some customers for sure. So it's a great point. We can take that away. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. It's going to be very interesting to see how each of us individuals deal with this new gadget in our house. Is there going to be, are you anticipating presenting a bit of a cheat sheet initially with the introduction of the new technology and that to assist people and watch out for this, and this, and this?
So with
It's
this,
similar to what Councillor Luck was saying about
right.
analyzing.
I haven't heard that we were going to do that, but I think in hearing both of you ask that question, it makes sense to me to today. I think about on the website today, you look at the bill and it gives you different areas of the bill where it shows you this is what number 1 is and this is what number 2 is. It's kind of a legend, and maybe we could do something like that for the portal, because you're right. When you don't have the smart meter, when you log into the website, you're going to see your energy usage, but it's going to be for the month. Then all of a sudden, when you get the smart meter and you log into the portal, you're going to have all this new information, but there was no show and tell on how to use that information. It's kind of fumbling around there and figuring it out. And to your point, some customers can do that easily. Other customers would like a show and tell. So I'll bring that back and see if we can do something like that with the portal.
I'm high maintenance.
No, I think it represents definitely some of our customers for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
It's very informative. I think what Councillor Luck was alluding to, I could be wrong, but I think what she was alluding to are the people that get the smart meters who have no technology.
Right.
You know, there's people, you know, I know several of my aunts that don't have a smartphone, don't have a computer. They have no idea. I mean, they're in their 80s and 90s. So to get a smart meter, it would take me to get the information. I don't even know if I could. I'd probably
Right.
have to be on their billing somehow and then use that information. But it wouldn't be beneficial for them at all. But I guess they would rely just on getting their monthly bill with that information on it.
That's right. And a scenario I can think of with that, because essentially when they get the smart meter, things won't change for them. They'll still get their bill. They're still going on and consuming their power. They get their bill at the end of the month and they look at it and they think, wow, that's higher than what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to call MB Power and find out what's wrong. And when they call, our advisors have all of that information that they can share, and they can actually say to the customer at the time, why don't you call me mid-month, next month, and we'll see where you are at that point. So there's different things we can do and respond to that, oh, I got a high bill at the end of the month, but yes, but we can help you mid-month if you contact us. So it'd be a little bit different than a self-serve option, but at least we can get ahead of it and have more information to help the customer. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I would move that Bob Scott and Christina Schneider be thanked for their presentation and that Quispamsis supports new MB Power's initiative to improve efficiency to its customers with smart meters.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer. On the question, please. Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on the question, on the motion, I have another question, is how can we assist in getting with you, with MB Power, getting the public session up and running? Is it a location you need? What is it that you need that might help you get that information out?
It's a good question. I'd like to take it back and find out what that looks like, because I want the timing to be right as well. Ideally, I'd like to do it ahead of us getting a lot of smart meters out, right? So I'll take note, and if we can be in touch that way, I know Bob has direct contact as well, and we can figure out timing and location.
Great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and we'll be hearing from you, I'm sure, very soon.
Thank you again for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Have a good evening. Item 5B. Bye-bye. Cedar Ridge Community Park, presentation of draft master plan. And with us this evening, we have Jim Scott, the CSLA consultant, trace planning and design. Welcome, Mr. Scott.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors.
I think we're just waiting for the
Yeah, we're just setting it up
slides to come up. There we go.
Can we punch the computer in?
Yeah.
Tim?
Switch to the podium.
Is that possible? Perfect. Your Worship, and councillors, it's essentially the same package as what we sent out earlier, except there's eye-captivating video in this one, which we can't put in PDFs to you, unfortunately. So we're here this evening to present the Cedar Ridge Community Park concept plan following 3 layers of consultation and 2 or 3 design iterations, plenty of discussion with the community, coming away from the recreation master planning, moving toward a concept plan that works for the community. What I'll do is I'll spend about 10 minutes going through the slide concepts, and then we can discuss it a little bit following this. The park space, absolutely wonderful park space. It's approximately 2 acres in size, extending between Cedar Ridge Boulevard and Pete Drive. Magnificent piece of ground. Just starting to show its age in terms of equipment, but the maintenance on it is impeccable. I think we learned that early on during our consultation of the Recreation Master Plan. There was a power line, transmission line extending through the site, but just clips along the edge of the site. So no real impact to the site with the transmission line. The site, as you go into the site from the parking lot that is there today, you'll get a presentation of a sign panel that presents the site to the community. You can see some bike racks there, some a garbage can, some notices about walking dogs with leashes within the park. We know it's well used by people who come and walk their dogs in the park. Beautiful tree canopy within the park space itself. Really well done drainage, so well done. There's actually the one trip point in the park is the piece of wood on the edge of the drainage, and someone smartly put a piece of rock in front of that to avoid that from being a problem. So staff are on that. There's some benches in the park. The one thing that I think we notice about the park, talk to residents, is that the play equipment over time has become a little bit spread out. So you have a piece of equipment, then another 10, 15 meters, you have another piece, and then another piece down along the way. So if you're going to the park with 2 or 3 kids and you're trying to maintain or take care of those kids on different pieces of play equipment, it becomes a little bit difficult. Traditionally, we try to amalgamate equipment as much as possible and have social centers for adults and other people in areas where they can manage the entire site from one location. So you have plenty of room to do that with minimal impact on the site. A few trees that may get lost or moved in whatever case going forward. This is a wonderful little climbing wall that I think everybody in the community absolutely loves. And of course, we want to keep that in our concept plan. Fortunately, we think this is a movable piece of equipment. Just by pulling it up and getting the concrete bases out underneath it that are there today. If we aren't able to reuse the concrete pieces, then we can build new pieces. We've allowed that in the budget. The Recreation Master Plan called for this site to be a community park. So you have 2 levels of park in your Recreation Master Plan. The first, the regional park, like what we have outside the, right outside of our door here. That is something that is of interest to all people that may drive, walk, cycle, bike, that kind of thing to your park, or skateboard, sorry, to your park spaces. Those are ones that are attractive to people throughout the region for one reason or another. This is a community park. It's meant for pedestrian use, cycling, walking, that kind of stuff. It's meant to service people that are about 1.7 kilometers around in terms of radius. So this is a pedestrian type park. And one of the discussions we had with residents is, we have a parking lot there today. Do we really need that parking lot? It seldom is it used, and if we put new pieces of play equipment, we may be able to absorb some of that parking area to do future play areas or future play or activity amenities within the park spaces. So you'll notice this sheet from your Recreation Master Plan essentially says it's starting to age, fair enough, but it's in great condition. It's very well maintained, and just a couple of things required to bring it in compliance with the Recreation Master Plan. The site, we have worked out 3 phases of concept, so I'll run over what those 3 phases are and why we've broken it into 3 phases, and then I'll move you around the site a little bit to see what the concept is. So at the very heart of the park, where the existing play equipment is now, we've amalgamated that into one central play area. So it's a multi-generational play space that includes play equipment. There's social and shade area adjacent to that for people to hang around with kids, or for kids to hang around in that space. It has bike racks there as well. There is an accessible granular trail that goes through the site and gets up to Pete Drive. So presently there is access through to Pete Drive that is informal. So this plan formalizes that access and has movement right through the site. And also right at the very entrance to the park, adjacent to the parking lot where I showed you there was a sign and there was a fence there. So the idea is to pull the fence away. The fence doesn't serve anything in terms of the park, and replace it with something that feels a little more like a park at that location. There is a second phase, which includes 2 pieces. The first piece includes a multi-use court. Now, this is placed in a second phase because you will have other parks that will be redeveloped. As we go through the redevelopment of those other parks, they may have a multi-use park at that space, and it may not be required at this location. This was added, it's not part of the Recreation Master Plan, this was added by residents, meant to be a very small informal court space, not a full-size court. It's about 5/8 of the size, has a small area for ball hockey, court soccer is something that's played a lot. Does not include pickleball, does include a basketball court in that area, just a half court in that area. There's also a small dog walking section that is in the Recreation Master Plan. A fair bit of debate with residents of what type of dog park space it should be. Is it something that should be split into small dogs and big dogs? But that's generally done more in the regional parks, not so much in just your community park. It's meant to be a social and inclusive space for dogs and people to come together. So a little more discussion to be done on that level. And to be done in a future phase. There's also an approved entry plaza at that point with additional bike parking. And then there's also a second part of the second phase includes something that is built by staff over time. It's really just formalizing a small trail network that is in the back there for the purpose of BMX or mountain biking, just a small play course that would have different features, different fun things for kids to bike over. So the way we would do wood, we would pile wood, we would create a bit of ramping, that kind of stuff. So it adds that additional amenity for those that would bike to the park. So they may have a brother and sister that play at the park. They can go for rides through the play area. So it would be an informal wood surface trail, and again, it's for mountain and BMX bikes. So those are the three phases. So the first phase of the site includes the removal, as I said, of the existing fencing and the replacement of something that feels more like a park fence with a new park gateway panel that leads us into where we have an amalgamated play surface. So one single play surface, accessible in terms of surfacing, accessible in terms of access to it, and accessible through the site for those wanting to use or who require accessibility at sites like this. Swings, very important, probably the most talked about thing. Also, given to us by someone in the community, we have to have a swing for big bums. So meaning adults, we had to find out what that actually meant. So adults are going to sit on the swings, which is exactly what they're meant to do. That's what they're for, is for multi-generational use. So an amalgamated play space with shade structure and bike racks, something that is here for everybody, and it's meant to be as social as it is active. So a place for all residents to come together. The trail section that connects through to Pete Drive extends into the play area and goes, so we have access from both entrances to the play area. So if we look at what that would look like or feel like if we were going in through the site, entering it from Cedar Ridge Boulevard, the existing granular parking area remains so far. Over time, as we add more amenities, we can pull that back a little bit, because really this is a neighborhood type park. We have an entrance, so we really make a strong statement of park space here into the play area. And again, what is existing now gets replaced with two play structures, one single play structure with a few elements around it for balancing on beams, and all intended to be multi-generational in intent. Coming through the trail from the top end of the site, and I'll just scoot you through down through the woods. So we upgrade the existing trail to a granular trail, only needs to be about 2.1 meters in width, would require a little bit of clearing along the ground surface to get the trail put in place, get it drained properly, but that brings us through to the play area from the opposite direction. So we have access from both directions, and in fact, we have access through the site from the either end of the site, either entrance. The second phase piece, and this is the one, again, as other parks begin to develop, we can relook at this at a future date, or move ahead and steal this from future parks, including the BMX surface. But this adds the dog space that was talked about in the Recreation Master Plan. The residents all seem to be in favor of a dog space as long as owners understand that it's not a big loud space, that we have to control our dogs. Generally, we hear a lot of that. We seldom hear too many problems at dog parks that we've worked on. So we have a dog space with the multi-use court just set in beside that. The existing entrance, phase 1 entrance, is retained, just pulled back on the fence a little bit to create entrance to the multi-use court that is in there now. So the feel at the entry, we would be pulling back on some of the parking a little bit, keeping in mind this is a community level park. And I think residents were keen on the idea that this is a walk to or a bike to destination, whether you're with dogs or you're not with dogs, entrance into the park. So we have our multi-use court, some shade. So we'd be removing trees in the area where we have the multi-use court into the phase 1 playground. Coming from the other way, it is essentially the same feel coming into the site along the trail. However, when we're coming in that trail, you'll look to the right as we're going in. That is the small BMX area on the existing trails. It's upgraded for the purpose of riding through a couple of tricks in through that area. Access is the same into where the play area is proposed, all amalgamated at one location. And then to the left, we get to see where the multi-use court sits, and then the dog space adjacent to the entry or the roadway. White labs are a big deal here, I guess. So those are the two phases that are talked about. We have a budget. We've forwarded that budget to you. It's in the two-phase components. The first phase, which includes putting the trail in, amalgamating the play area, a couple new play features, and the entry signage, comes in at about $456,000, a little more than that. On top of that, we carry contingency and some design work, management work, staff time is included in that as well. So that comes over just a little more than $550,000, with phase 2 at about $102,000, $103,000. By the time that is done, we get the multi-use court, the dog area in place, then we're about $126,000 in that area. Again, the BMX park is something that is more of a staff project. They're easy features to build in the wintertime and place on site in the summertime, so we don't have to allow for that. So again, two phases of the park. Mostly the big thing is bringing together that play area, making it as social as it is playable, make it easy for people to get to, make it fully accessible, have a central social space with shade, access to everything around us, and then future phases that looks at the court and the dog space. So with that, Your Worship, we'd be happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott, for your presentation. And I will go now to Council for any comments or questions. Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I apologize if you've already covered this. But when I look at the, where the play structures are, you've said that it's going to be accessible. What is the ground material going to be like? It looks like sand from that picture, but I'm not sure what actually it is.
Yes, the material we use for that is called fiber.
Okay.
So it's an engineered wood composite material. What it does, it looks like wood chips. When you lay it, it locks together. Mm-hmm. So it stays relatively soft and loose if you're running around on it. If you have a wheel surface crossing it, it binds up. Okay. And creates an accessible surface going across it. Fredericton uses it a lot. We use it a lot of places.
Is it something that would rot out fairly quickly?
No, not if you do it right. If you do it wrong, it will.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
we'll do it right then.
It needs to be laid to an exact depth and monitored for that depth.
And another suggestion is, where you've got the basketball court and where you've got the bike racks. Potentially, it might be a good idea to have a bike repair station with the little pumps that they can, you can pump up your basketball or you can pump up your bike tires. Because I feel like that's I know Rosse has it on down in Remforth, and I feel like that's a fairly, cheaper sort of thing that you could do that would enhance that area quite a bit. If you're trying to make it a community space, then that's, I come by and, pump up the tires of my bike, or if your basketball goes flat and so on. Mm-hmm. Just an idea, that's all. Yeah.
Very good. They're well used, surprisingly well used.
And I was going to say, I just had one more, sorry. I just had a quick little side discussion with the director of, I was going to say community works, public works. And I had said, my question was, I wonder if there's an opportunity to put in like a community water fountain, like that people can fill up their water bottles and such, but that would entail us drilling a well. At some point, we're going to have to put water down in that area. So I feel like that's a project for a later date, but it also, I think, is a good idea to have, those water things that people can fill their water bottles up, especially if they're in an area where they'll get overheated. Right?
So Council, we can put that into the phase 2 piece. We can budget that.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Squire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Scott, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. One along the lines of accessibility. Did you consult with any of the disability groups within the province or in Greater St. John on accessibility?
Not specifically,
Not
Councillor, no.
okay.
No, but we've,
Because I'm just wondering, there's different terms of accessibility, I would think. You have carriages or strollers and wheelchairs. And so I'm really want to make sure that we get the accessibility portion correct and what that surface looks like. I know nobody wants to put pavement down, but sometimes we have to do what makes it equal access for everyone, right?
yes.
My next question is regarding how many trees are you talking about taking down out of the park to make the trail? What does that look like? The one big attraction to that park in my mind is the number of trees and keeping them as firm as possible in the ground, the water table. So what's the plan for the trees? How many are we taking down?
Yes. For the amalgamation of the play spaces, it looks like 2 trees would have to be removed. One's a birch, one's I think it's an older spruce that sets on the site. For the play area, for the trail, we would have to have a survey run along that line. We'd have to do the survey for the site anyway, just to see how much space, we would impact to put the trail in through there. Ideally, you want to do as little as possible. Understanding that we can't, putting a trail, we wouldn't put a trail on top of a root system just for the sake of the stability of maintenance of that trail over time. So we would have to look at that when we look at the survey.
And just if I may, my last question is about the court size. Through you to the Director of Parks and Recreation. Do we have any full-size courts in Quispamsis now for basketball?
Full size?
So we still wouldn't have a full-size court in Quispamsis, outdoor full-size court for basketball. I know we have it for pickleball and tennis, but we don't have anything for basketball.
Oh, you're right, and the Recreation Master Plan does address the need for that as well. It's a regional park asset. Full-size court will come with automobiles and visitors that will drive there, so it requires a regional park facility to host it. But it's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Squire. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Scott. I guess I like the design. I like everything else. I don't like the cost. And knowing that this is where we're probably going to go to, I just have one question before I ask you a question to our Director of Recreation. How many playgrounds do we have in total? Because once we start one, the other ones will follow. So how many?
I think there's 9. I'd have to think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
9.
And I guess that's I think this is probably the way we're going to go. The cost is scary, to be quite frank. Right now, I'm just speaking my comments. We're stretched with until 2026. We pay over $1 million on the Qplex, so that'll be done at the end of 2026, and then another 100 and some thousand to Canadian Federation or whatever after that. We got water coming in. We've got Venus Cove Park, or the property that we bought. I know we did a study on that. We've got the playground up by the trailer park that we kind of pushed off because some legal issues with lands and stuff. So I really like what I'm seeing. I'm scared of the costs, and a question on the consulting fees is, it seems it's always a percentage off the thing. So if we use sand, everything goes down. So I'm a little confused at the rationale that it's always a percentage of the costs, because when I look at that, it's, if we do less, the work doesn't change, that the consultant does. So I'm really confused at why, if we put in better material, it costs more. If we buy better materials, we pay more in consulting fees, so, or project management fees. So that's just my comment. So so I do like what I see here. We would have to, this is the way we start to approach, this is what'll have to happen to 9. So, and they're not gonna get cheaper every year. They're gonna go up. So if you look at this, it's including the consulting fees, and we don't have HST on the first one, right? On the 456,000, you'd have to add some HST onto it. The other one, so you'd have to have HST. So we're already up to 560, 660, $700,000 plus HST with our recoverables. So this one's $250,000 and times 9. So it's, so I think the concept is great. It's just, to me, it's going to be the challenge. How do we start planning these throughout? And how long does one of these last? That we're putting in all these different materials. Is this a 15-year playground? Is it a 20-year playground? Or is it a 10-year playground when all the material has to be replaced because it's safe and everything else, but is it replaced every X amount of years? So I don't know if you can answer any of those.
Yeah,
Thanks.
generally speaking, they're about 25-year playgrounds with 15-year surface. So you'll end up total replacement of your surface after 15 years. Your comment on the consulting fees is right. You would never, the design for this park would never be the amount that we have in there, but we always put it in, we have to base it on something. So we always, generally speaking, it sits about 11% and includes staff time that would be required in there as well. So we try to lump that together. And it depends really on the project. Generally, if you're going to do a detailed design for a project, Dana would call a few people, get pricing put in. It'd be a competitive pricing, and it would, it wouldn't relate to materials directly. Yeah, sometimes change orders, sometimes do, but yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Scott, for your presentation. I guess just building off of what Councillor Miller had asked, we were presented a while ago with a really great recreation master plan. And, one of your comments earlier was that this community park was starting to age, but was still in great condition. And I'm just wondering what the rationale was in terms of how this particular community park got prioritized as kind of what we want to spend our money on compared to some of the other things in the recreation plan.
Yeah, the priority of that came from the recreation master plan. It was the one that had, the equipment was the oldest. The site's in good condition. All of your sites are in good condition. Your staff do a great job maintaining it. But the equipment was old, it was not accessible, and it was pulled into different pieces. And I think the residents in this area had a lot to say about that when we did the rec master plan. It moved it to the front of the list. With this site as well was the notion of the dog park as a test facility. Give it, let's try it at the community level to see how it works. So that's how priority was set on this one. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Are there any other comments or questions? Looking for a motion, please. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just say thanks very much, Mr. Scott. I'll move that Mr. Scott be thanked for his presentation tonight.
It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Donovan. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much for being here this evening and for your presentation, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Ms. Burton-Dixon, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just looking for clarification with regard to the motion. I bringing this to the budget process in the fall? I assume so, but I would like to have that in the motion to give me some direction. Thank you.
The Director of Community Services is looking for a motion to move this to the budget process. Councillor Thompson?
I would move that the Cedar Ridge Community Park presentation be forwarded to the budget process.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson on the question. Please vote now. Did we get all the votes in? So the motion is to move the Cedar Ridge project.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
make the motion. The motion, which didn't appear on eScribe, is to forward this to the budget deliberations for 2025.
Thank you. And it was moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Donovan. Olson, I'm sorry. You were nodding your head. And do we have that up now, Lisa? Motion carried 7-0 to move the Cedar Ridge Community Park project to the budget deliberations. Item number 6, public hearings. Proposed zoning bylaw amendment number 038-49, an amendment that removes restriction of no dwelling units on detached garages. Councillor Donovan.
I'd be prepared to make that motion. I'm just not sure if I have to read something before I make that motion, or because this is the third.
This is a public hearing.
Oh, okay. I would move that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment number.
Is this a public hearing? This is a public hearing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Oh, this is the public hearing. Oh, okay, that's where I was confused.
So to acknowledge the public hearing, I've been asked, council has been asked, and plans to consider amending municipal plan number 054 and/or zoning bylaw number 038. This day has been set in a place, at this place for a public. Oh.
It's just reading third reading, isn't it?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship, through you into council. This is a zoning bylaw text amendment only, not a municipal plan amendment. So just a zoning bylaw text amendment. Thank you. And also, if I may, while I'm here, just advise that there was a revision to the amendment. And I think that that's been provided to you by the clerk. Thank you.
Okay, so that is in our package. Councillor Donovan.
I would move that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment number 038-49 receive third and final reading.
Councillor Thompson.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question.
On the question.
Mayor Squire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm pleased to see this gentle density program come forward, and I thank the staff for taking the time to get it ready for our consideration. The one thing I wanted to make sure is that this does apply to new builds as well as existing garages. So if a family member wants to build a detached garage for a family member, whether it be their parent or their child, or that may be have special needs and needs close proximity to their parents, that it can be a new build, that it can be custom built to fit the needs of the aging population or special needs.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship, to answer Deputy Mayor Schreier's question. Yes, it would certainly include any new build as well as older builds. However, the older builds, already existing structures, would need to provide details to the building department that would provide proof that the building could handle that supportive development. That is staff's biggest concern, is for life safety. I did just want to mention that before we put the bylaw forward, that I do believe that we are supposed to present a public hearing, and there may be people in the audience that wish to speak for this. So I don't know if you want to do the public hearing first and then ask questions to staff afterwards. We have received first and second reading.
That
Okay.
it was a public hearing, that I do have to
Yes.
read this to the public so that they, yes, okay, thank you. So I'm just going to put this in reverse for a moment. So the mayor and council acknowledges that we have been requested and plan to consider amending municipal plan number 054 and/or zoning bylaw number 038. That we have this day and place set for a public hearing. That anyone wishing to speak for or against the proposed bylaw amendment will be heard and considered by council, and that each person wishing to speak will approach the podium, identify themselves, and have up to 5 minutes to address council. So planning staff is to provide the executive summary, and then there'd be a presentation by the proponent. Those wishing to speak for or against the proposal shall be given the opportunity to be heard. And I will ask 3 times if anyone wishes further to speak for or against the proposed amendment. The proponent makes a final summation. PAC's written views are noted. Council members may ask questions, and a motion may be presented and voted upon. So our first stage would be to have staff come and do their presentation. Welcome, Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you, Your Worship and council. before you was a decision to be made regarding dwelling units in detached garages. Currently, the zoning bylaw does have a clause in it that does restrict this from occurring. In section 8G1 DII, it does state dwelling unit, and also in section 2501B, so that has also been, that section's been added to the bylaw amendment. So it's just a way of providing gentle densities increases within the community without making large changes to the community, if you will. So I think the council has had time to review my staff report, and I would stand behind that, what I've written, and encourage you to consider allowing dwelling units in detached garages. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask those wishing to speak for or against the proposal to come forward to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please step to the podium, give your name for the clerk. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, council, staff. My name is Rob Beliveau. I live at 10 Lake Road, and I'm here to support the motion to amend the bylaw. And the reasons stated by Councillor Donovan, I support. I also have a building permit in the review process right now for such a building. We are planning to build on an adjacent lot to 10 Lake Road a new home with a detached garage, and the plan was to put a dwelling space above the garage, and primarily as an extra space for visitors, and perhaps a future place for my wife and I when we can no longer manage a larger space on our own and don't want to leave our property. The home that we're designing is also a slab on grade to reduce having to use stairs in the future, and it only has 2 bedrooms inside the house building itself. So we have 4 children and a few grandchildren, so we need the extra space for them to come visit as well. So I think, with the other thing is, I think we have to consider these days. I know I have 2 children who are probably $100 or $150 of rent increase away from not being able to afford where they live now. And it would be nice to have a backstop for them if something should happen that they have to leave where they are. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to amend this bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beliveau. Once again, I will ask anyone wishing to speak for or against this proposal to please come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this proposal, please come to the podium. Last and final time, anyone wishing to speak for or against the proposal, please come to the podium. Seeing that there are none, I will ask Ms. Jarvis back to the podium.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just wanted to be clear that there was a slight change to the amendment. After speaking with the development officer, I thought it was important to clarify the setbacks distance for a detached garage when it does contain an accessory dwelling unit, and that it should maintain a 3-meter setback as all dwelling units do within our community. For existing garages, if that is not possible, they could request a variance through the PAC process. So yes, so the amendment now has 4 items in it, and not the 2 that it previously did, just to be clear. And one other point of clarification is number 4. to the zoning bylaw amendment, it should have a colon and a space, which I can mend afterwards. But I'm open to any questions the council may have.
At this time, I will open the floor for council members to ask questions. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Worship. Hello, hello. Come on back. There we go. Thank you. I also don't know how to run smart meters, Beth. Thank you very much for this, and I think Mr. Beliveau characterizes perfectly the advantage that this has to our town and how the times have changed when a bylaw prohibited deliberately this very thing that now we all, I think, more or less see the value of. And I might make a bid to come live in that space that you want to build, by the way. I'm about $150 away from not affording my place. The question I had was in relation to the zones that allow for this. So R1 and RU zones allow for this. And I was thinking about Lake Road, in fact, and the doctors' graves who have opened their clinic at the top of Lake Road. That was a petition I believe we entertained to rezone to neighborhood commercial to allow for that. And so how does that impact on neighborhood? You know, like it made me think that we might have to be mindful of the impact of this venture in neighborhoods where someone might also want to have a bit of mixed light commercial of neighborhood commercial. And now maybe I'm just really misunderstanding how those things coexist. But I just wondered if you could speak to that at all, given that NC zone is not eligible according to the report I see in front of me for this sort of thing.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bigger. Point of clarity, it was actually staff recommended neighborhood commercial, but they actually did get central commercial zoning for that property. Anyhow, an aside. The provisions of Section 6D, which deal with accessory dwelling units, will prevail. And it does say that not permitted in commercial residential uses and or daycare facilities. So properties that have those type of situations, a commercial operation, or a daycare within the property, it would not be a permitted use.
On that, thank you very much. So, okay, so just to be sure then, my concern is that, you know, by virtue of what one person wants to do with their property that might necessitate requesting a zoning change, that might interrupt what other people would like to do in relation to this. But you're saying that would not actually be the case?
With if they have an operation that's happening on that lot,
right?
Although if it's not zoned R1 or RU, they're not going to receive an accessory dwelling unit permit primarily.
Right.
So you're saying if they change the zoning after the fact?
No, I'm just trying to confirm that by virtue of, in the example I used, that the doctors who had central commercial petition successfully, managed here, that doesn't have an impact on what other people on Lake Road could do in relation to what we're discussing here. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right, of course. No, it would all be dependent on the lot only and not what's happening around the lot. Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation. I'm thrilled. I couldn't be any happier. I know when I was on the campaign trail, as I'm sure most of us heard, that, I've heard from people that, they've got children and even themselves that just can't afford places to live in the valley. And even if you can afford it, the places to live in the valley are far and few between. And one of the comments that I actually heard often was around the red tape. We need to remove the red tape surrounding housing. And I definitely think that's what we're doing here. And I think it's should definitely be applauded. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. The question I have, and it sort of worries me a little bit, because I mentioned it the last time we had talked about this in front of council, and a dwelling unit, I assume that's just something that somebody occupies, but it doesn't, there's no explanation, at least in my mind, to that as to whether, somebody decides to turn their, detached garage into an Airbnb that they're renting out to people, or if they're turning it into an apartment. Like, I'm just curious, if has been any thought, or if we're even allowed to have a thought about, are we able to sort of limit what people use it for? Because I'm not here to harm anybody's, money making opportunities, especially in the climate that we're in. But I'm worried, I just looking at some of the other environments, mind you, most of them are big cities where this is happening. I'm worried that people are going to maybe take advantage of the fact that you can now have a separate unit and you can make money off that, and that would take advantage, or that would take away from the possibility of having somewhere for somebody to live. Do you know does that make sense?
Through your worship, I totally understand what you mean, and with short-term rentals, it is a concern. Although there are no provisions in our bylaw currently, and the Community Planning Act, can think remains silent on the issue.
Something
something
in the
to
future,
look at
I
in
guess.
the
Yeah,
future.
okay.
Yes, for sure.
Okay,
For sure, when we receive direction as to
Yes.
provisions for short-term rentals,
We'll kick
Airbnbs,
the
etc.
ball down the road a little bit, and we'll worry about it later, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I didn't know if the process you wanted me to re-ask my question. We sort of jumped the gun, but you did answer it, that it does include new builds. But I am curious about the 3-meter setback for existing homes, because some of our older homes might be closer to the road, and I'd hate to see that residents are excluded and have to go through PAC to get this, where somebody can do a new build and it's approved right away, no PAC required. So, like, why? I understand that, you want it, but if it's an existing detached garage and it doesn't meet the 3-meter, why does it have to go through PAC?
Thank you, and through your worship. What I did was I looked at the provisions in the bylaw for dwelling units throughout our community, and it seemed pretty consistent. There was a 3-meter setback for a dwelling unit to a property line. I just thought it was good planning to consider that was a standard that we sort of have established here in the community, and I thought it was important to include that for detached garages for dwelling units as well. That extra 1.5 meters may provide a nice little buffer. To your point about the existing structures, these may be challenging to develop into detached, not detached garages, but to dwelling units. And it would take some work to prove that the building is capable of supporting that level of development. So I don't think there would be a rush to the door to PAC for a lot of variances, but I think it would be important for us to be able to step back and look at an application that did want to be a little closer to that side property line than what is ordinarily allowed for dwellings.
Okay, not sure I agree with that, but I understand your rationale behind it. And my other comment or question is on the same lines as Councillor Bigger, is I can tell you I grew up above our local, our store. I mean, that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
People had built or businesses and they lived above it. And if you travel the world, you'll see that still exists, and that's how people live. So I don't know why we're not extending this to our commercial areas. They're prevented, or from a neighborhood resident or commercial, that they couldn't put a place up top for staff. Staffing is a big problem. There's no affordable housing for them. So I just wondered why we didn't consider the commercial areas at the same time.
Well, Primarily through your worship to the council members, primarily, I think that it's a text amendment, so it wasn't like to look at the overall bylaw for each individual zone. Currently, residents are permitted in R1 and RU, and that's why this amendment is being just focused basically on those zones. If council has a desire to include residential dwellings in commercial spaces, top commercial spaces, or a neighborhood commercial, that is certainly something that we can work towards. But this zoning bylaw amendment was just a text amendment to remove a few little words that did restrict something that would provide a gentle increase to density.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Thank you. I'm going to go
explanation.
to our municipal planning officer, Mr. Colburn.
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Deputy Mayor. So I'll go back to the question about the setbacks. So what we have to look at is that we're actually introducing into an accessory structure a new use. We're allowing for dwelling units to exist in these. So because we're now introducing a new use, which is based on residential, and it being a dwelling unit, we said, okay, you're sort of grandfathering things in. So you have to get a sense with that setback of being 1.5 meters. So we know that the zoning bylaw provides any dwelling units, they're 3 meters. Seems it's the standard, it's the set. So let's use that as the starting point. What that allows us to do is when we start getting applications, people may be asking to put these in accessory dwelling units, it gives us a sense of now, okay, you're sort of grandfathering these in. Let's see if people are comfortable with it being 1.5 meters away from a property line. So we take them to PAC or they go through a development officer process, and it gives us some metrics. It gives us some numbers to say, okay, 1.5 is not a problem. So then we can adjust accordingly. Okay, so we're actually, it's sort of introducing a new use, but you're also sort of grandfathering some of these things into existing, if you will, structures. Building on what Ms. Jarvis was saying, it also comes down to the fact that these structures have to meet National Building Code. So if you have an existing garage, you're submitting an application for an existing dwelling unit, the initial response back from staff will be, okay, is the structure capable of supporting the additional dwelling unit? So, in terms of framing, and does it have the right, power and all those types of things. So there is a number of steps we still have to go through. So that was the rationale behind that. We know that 3 meters is what's standard in our bylaw. So let's start there, and then we'll examine as we go through. To the second comment regarding residential in commercial, that is currently being worked through. As you're all aware, we're going through a municipal plan review and zoning bylaw amendment, and the current provision, there is a current provision in the municipal plan that allows for residential and commercial to mix. Right now, the wording is they're separate buildings. However, we will be moving that towards one building. So you can have that multi or mixed use development within one existing building where you could see commercial, business space, and on the top floor or wherever you want to arrange it, living space for whether that's staff or whoever that may be. So that is coming. Yep. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Surface. Thank you, Your Worship. I mentioned it, I guess, a meeting or two before, that there's something happening nationally on infilling, improving or reducing the restrictions on developing multi-units within a particular building lot, as we recognize it now. And there was various opinions that I sort of picked up when I was at FCM, and I was just wondering what the status of that is. That picking up progress and moving nationally, or I don't know if you've got any more updates on that, Mr. Colburn.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Olson. So there are a number of things happening even at a provincial level. Just recently, the planning director did a webinar and a learning session regarding some of the challenges with respect to densification, and it talked about NIMBYism, and it's obviously a challenge that's right across the country. So there are people there's eyes on this to say, how can we address this? So what we're anticipating is there will be steps that will sort of get around, if you will, the NIMBYism, basically having more engagement up front, so rather than the public hearings becoming, a couple hour sessions where everybody, sort of expresses their concerns and we're trying to work through it in that process, speeding it up. So you have that engagement process at the beginning. What comes to councils is basically, yep, it's approved. So it speeds up that process. So there are things happening at a provincial level as well as a national level, which we will follow suit in terms of our bylaws and regulations and implement those things. Just building on that, I think at the last council meeting, it was mentioned about this idea of having what we call 4 units as a right on any property. Just wanted to sort of clarify, and I'm not sure if council's aware of it, but that does currently exist in our zoning bylaw, because you can have in Quispamsis, you can have a 2-family dwelling, and each of those 2-family dwellings can have an accessory dwelling unit in the basement. So there's 4 units on one property. So even though it seems to be a shock, it already exists. So just a point of clarification.
Mr. Colburn, just further to that, so typically, if a house that is not connected to the town's wastewater management system, sewage, so typically your field, septic field would be according to the number of bedrooms, correct?
That is correct.
So if the field is set for the existing house, how do we accommodate if I have a septic field, but yet I'm going to have a 2-bedroom? So one would think that there's going to be at least 2 extra people living there. So the capacity, do we have to change that, I guess, is the question.
So through you, or to you, Worship, so new builds is pretty straightforward. That's part of the on-site sewage disposal system approvals from the province. You have to indicate the number of bedrooms that will be going into that particular field. So whether they're all in the one unit or if they're separate units. If they are currently existing, then what we would looking for is we would require some sort of provision from the Department of Public Safety that would say that the property owner can apply to the province for an exemption to that. So the province would grant an exemption through their protocols, or they could look at getting an engineered system. So they may have to upgrade their septic system to provide for that. So engineered systems allow for more bedrooms or more flows on a property into a different, versus the conventional tank and field, you have an engineered system, which means your lots can be smaller. So there are mechanisms in place to address that. That falls under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Safety, which we would be relying on before we issue permits.
Thank you for the answer. I don't see any other comments or questions at this point. So at this point, it is time for the motion to be presented and voted upon. So it was moved by Councillor Donovan and seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Item number 7, minutes of the previous meeting, June 18th, 2024. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I move that those minutes be approved as prepared.
Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 8, unfinished business, 8A. Blenheim Drive residents, Jaswinder Shohakar, Vinay Wandikap, and Josh Brinson. And do we have anyone here speaking on that? Mr. Colburn, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. So to bring that item back to council, as council may recall, we had some residents from Blenheim who came and had some concerns with stormwater, surface drainage that was basically flowing from the lots up above and making its way down and impacting the property owners. Council had directed the developer to work with, through staff, to correct the issue. The developer, working with the property owners, has installed swales or little ditches basically that capture the water and bring it to the street. In some locations, he's also installed some piping. So some piping extends back from the street to capture the water to get it into the stormwater system. Based on our requirements, it has addressed the issue. To my knowledge, there's still some landscaping items that need to be addressed, but overall, the main item of stormwater management and addressing the drainage problems on the property has been addressed through the work that's been done by the developer.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that the developer was able to address those. I would move that the concerned residents be notified of the action that was taken.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Bigger on the question. Please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item 8B, George Chapman, Route 119 and Route 100 intersection pedestrian crossing. Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that the town proceed with a submission to Department DTI to review the warrant analysis for pedestrian signal upgrades at the intersection of Route 119, Gondola Point, Ontario, and Route 100, the Hampton Road, and further the project be referred to the 2025 budget deliberations if approvals from the DTI are forthcoming.
Thank you. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question. Councillor Donovan.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Lozier. I just had a quick question about the rendering that was attached in the package. So it looks like there's crosswalks on, like to get to across from Hampton and then across the arterial over to kind of the Irving side. But there is no crosswalk from kind of the middle point over to kind of the right-hand side. And I believe the plan is eventually to do like a mini mall or something there. I just didn't know if we'd be, like, I guess on the rendering, it looks like, you know, there's like little markings where the crosswalk would be, but it looks like there's no crosswalk to the right-hand side of the other side of the street. I just didn't know if that was an oversight. Yeah, like there's supposed to be something, like there's supposed to be a commercial area there in the next few years. I just didn't know if we're spending the money and putting the stuff in, if that would be something that we'd want to be thinking about if we were going to be.
Yeah, it's through Your Worship. The design is for what is there now. So when we submit our application to DTI, what they'll do is they'll identify any terms and conditions that they want to see. Right now, we just have to make provision to get people across. If it's going to be just a case of painting lines in the future, if there's going to be some future development, then we would address that appropriately. Okay. At this stage, really, it was establishing the warrant, which is there a need or is there a justification to have it? And quite frankly, the alignment is somewhat irrelevant at this stage, but it's whether we can allow pedestrian control of that particular intersection is what's being asked.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Councillor Luck. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Engineering. You know, I would like to see it done for sure, but I guess I just want to clarify so people understand that this road is a provincial road, so we still have to get authority even to put lines and put signs on there. So we do have to go through DTI to allow that. So that's that. And And if they do come back quickly, we can have that discussion later on, but the odds are that we probably won't hear back for a little while. But I would like to see something there for sure, but we just can't do it until they say we can. So I just want to confirm, right? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger, or sorry, Councillor Miller. We have a motion on the table, moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 7-0. Item 8C, Strategic Plan 2025 Council Priorities. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Your Worship, at the last council meeting, we decided to have discussions on our strategic plan prior to the budget deliberations. And I believe it was unanimous, all council feels that this is a great exercise for us to do. The one wild card in there is that our new CEO will not be in place until August 26th, I believe. So I thought it was prudent that we include our new CEO with the discussion so that he has an opportunity to hear council's views and ideas, and I'm sure he'll have himself familiarized with the strategic plan very quickly, but he will be in control of delivering it and with the staff, making sure that. So with all that said, I would put a motion forward that council postpone this item to the September 3rd, 2024 regular council meeting. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Donovan. Are you seconding it? By Councillor Donovan. On the question, Councillor Olson.
I was just seconding it, Your
Oh,
Worship.
okay. Thank you. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am in agreement because I think there will be some value in having our new CIO take part in those discussions. Originally, when it was discussed, I think there was some concern around timing. So we have been assured that, pushing off till September won't affect this year's budget. And I guess I just wanted to kind of reiterate that because that was kind of the intent of having a strategic plan review in the summer. So we would be able to give staff enough time to, I guess, kind of make the appropriate adjustments for budgeting. So I guess I'm just putting that out there to make sure that we're all in agreement and we're aware that if we push to September, there might be a bit of scrambling afterwards. But I'm in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Thank you. Item 8D, ratification of email poll, street upgrading 2024, tender 2024 TQ04-03, extra street recommendations, staff reports from town clerk and director of engineering and works. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm prepared to move that council ratify the email poll conducted on June 28th, 2024 to amend tender number 2024 TQ04-03 street upgrading 2024 awarded to Galbraith Construction Limited to include the addition of the Quispamsis Road to the scope of work and the tender value being initially increased by $366,556.37 to account for the additional work identified to date. The cost of the work on this addition will come from the street capital budget assigned for the Quispamsis Road identified at $485,000.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 9A, correspondence from Deputy Mayor Schreier, possible conversion of pumping station into washroom facilities.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was hoping that maybe we could explore the idea of taking existing pumping stations as we upgrade to the new pumping stations, that there could be a use for the old pumping stations. And I know that we have taken one down already, and I just thought maybe I was a little behind putting this forward. But is there a use for existing pumping stations for conversions into washrooms, so that when people are doing the walking of the Gondola Point Road, that they could stop if needed? And just wanted to hear the ideas from our Director of Engineering, how we might be able to look at facilities going forward.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. When we looked at our wastewater pumping station program for the Gondola Point Road, that was one of the considerations that we did have, is where would be appropriate to incorporate public access washrooms in the renovation plan. So what we had looked at was probably somewhere in the middle of the area. We would be looking at a design that would incorporate that. The station that recently was demolished, the Station 5 at the bottom of Sunnybank, was not considered for two reasons. One, it wasn't close to the middle. Secondly, there was the proximity to the Gondola Point Beach, and I believe there's plans underway to consider that for public access washrooms. And then when we did look at it, the existing structure itself was not conducive to being converted to a washroom, because we had to remove the panels and the pumps, and the building is stepped down, so there's a actual physical wet well in it, so you couldn't do that. When we looked at the adjacent wet well to it, we did some initial cost reviews, and it was about a $40,000 to $50,000 expense to create a public access washroom, and that wasn't identified in our utility capital budget at the time. It is tight. The town treasurer regularly slaps my wrists when I go over budget, and I did not think that we would be really in the position to do that this go around. But as I mentioned earlier, it is an item that when we're looking at Station 3 and Station 4, we'll be evaluating both locations to see if there's an opportunity to incorporate some type of a public access washroom. You see that at a lot of pump stations. It's going to be, is there sufficient parking? Where is it in relation to any sort of trail network? Is there public water that we can incorporate into it? Because really you're going to be looking at more than just a flush. You're going to be looking at some type of a water system. So parking, things like that. And we felt that 3 or 4 might have the better amenities to support it than any of the other ones did. So it is in the queue when we do an evaluation. It just wasn't done for Station 5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. There's no motion on that. Item number B. I have correspondence from Councillor Bigger, policy review, employee policy number 063. Councillor Bigger. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a little preamble here that I've written. I'll just quickly read through this, and that'll give us the direction we need on this item, I think. As elected officials, we've all responded to the pull towards public service, obviously, and we've all experienced the challenge of election campaigning. I'm sure I'm not the only one who was excited and humbled at receiving the confidence of our voting residents back 3 years ago in 2021. As a council, we've spoken often about how to remove barriers that might prohibit or limit good people from running for public service. And we recognize that, generally speaking, more candidates is a feature of a healthy democracy. Town of Quispamsis Policy 063 was passed on October 16, 2018 by the Council of the Day. It declares itself a means of preserving fairness and impartiality in the campaign process to any town staff member who might seek elected office. However, While no doubt with the very best of intentions, I believe it actually confounds that goal and achieves the opposite outcome. In reality, Policy 63 creates disadvantages for staff seeking to run as candidates, and I believe it's something we should discontinue. With no precedent, no historical reference or previous problem to explain its rationale, Policy 63 imposes an undue, unprecedented, and unwarranted penalty on any staff candidates. The policy states that a staff candidate must request an unpaid leave of absence, post-writ issuance, that would continue until election results are official, a period that usually lasts about 6 weeks. Although autumn is the traditional term for elections, political considerations mean an election could be called at virtually any season, and any would-be staff candidate would have to be prepared to take on the sudden financial burden imposed by this weeks-long unpaid leave in a way that non-staff candidates would not. According to a recent study by Alan Marshall and Associates, nearly half of Canadians live paycheck to paycheck, and the number continues to grow. Availing oneself as an election candidate is already a challenging and vulnerable choice for anyone to consider. It becomes more daunting, in fact, with every season. Why do we impose an added financial burden for candidates who work for the town? To me, this is neither fair nor impartial, and rather it creates a needless, hefty difficulty for some staff candidates in the campaigning process. At the same time, Policy 63 disallows the use of an employee's earned vacation time for the post-writ campaign period, essentially guaranteeing that a candidate will have no employment income during this time. Aside from some specific blockout periods that might occasionally occur for certain unique town jobs, I do not see how it is our business to tell employees when they may make use of their earned vacation time. Furthermore, whether it's for a cruise, a family trip, or to campaign in an election, how staff use their vacation is simply none of our business. Beyond confirming coverage, etc., by their immediate supervisor, if staff have held up their end of the deal, so to speak, as employees, working hard, earning the vacation allotted to them, they are entitled to their privacy, as I see it, in how they use that vacation, and we should not violate that right to their privacy, nor game the system by singling out one circumstance and saying that staff vacation time cannot be used for this thing, when such rules don't exist elsewhere. I even worry about us running afoul of labor laws in regard to this, and I would note that to my knowledge, no policy like this exists in any other municipal jurisdiction in all of New Brunswick. Finally, approval for selected staff vacation dates is an operational matter. Council should not impose a policy that usurps the proper chain of staff management. The application of Policy 63 seems to me to afford Council a role in management of staff that is outside our purview. If the aim is to do all we can as a council and town to ensure fairness and impartiality in our electoral politics, we should simply abstain from imposing any policies that create a disadvantage for any candidates. We should continue to be vigilant in removing barriers, as we have sought to do, and not create inequities and limitations, nor needlessly frustrate the process for good people who just want to serve the public. Therefore, I move that Policy 63 be rescinded.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger that Policy 63 be rescinded, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Bigger. I guess I'm look to our human resource person, and maybe I just misread it. I thought you could take, I agree that you should be able to work if you want to and take everything else. I don't think you should have to be off for 6 weeks, but I thought you're allowed to use your vacation. I know it says unpaid. I couldn't see where it says you can't take your vacation. Can you take your vacation? I don't think you should have to, but that's what I was confirming.
Through your worship to Councillor Miller, I'm sorry I was not here at the creation of the policy, so I'm not quite sure, but vacation typically would be used at your discretion as long as it's operationally approved by your supervisor or direct report, so.
Yeah, okay, because I was under the impression you could take your vacation, but I am also against, I don't think you have to take 6 weeks off. If you decide you want to start week 3, as long as you're not doing all the other things, I think you're fine. That's just my personal comment. So the other things like your badges and putting up your signs and stuff like that, but whether you want to work for the 3 weeks and take the last 3 weeks to hit the road to do stuff, to me, that's fine. That's fine. So I do agree with that part being changed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Donovan, please.
Thank you.
Actually, you came back to me, but
I'm
perhaps
sorry.
I'll just read the portion of the policy that speaks to that. Item 6 under the policy 63 says, to become a candidate, a Quispamsis employee must take an unpaid leave of absence and provide written notice to request an unpaid leave pursuant to Quispamsis procedures. The unpaid leave shall commence when an election writ is issued and continue until the election results have been officially declared. So that means that you are not allowed to use your vacation time. You're mandated by this policy for some reason to take an unpaid leave of absence. I didn't even speak in what I read there about whether or not you would continue to be able to come to work and campaign in your off time from work. I haven't even addressed that. But we're basically not even allowing people to use vacation time, which, as I say, I worry is perhaps a violation of labor laws. I don't see how it's our place to tell people when they're allowed to take their vacation on. People often are excited about their cruise to Italy or what have you that they're going on, that they're excited about, but nobody's obliged to say what they're going to use their vacation for. In fact, outside of the fact that a potential candidate might express that to workmates just as a point of interest, what's to stop someone from taking their vacation when they want to and then running as a candidate and we wouldn't even know? I mean, of course we would know because it's a very public-facing thing. But you see what I'm saying? It doesn't really work. And it seems like an undue financial hardship. And I feel like the whole thing is basically a solution in search of a problem. I can't find any record of any previous problem that mandated the development or the deployment of this policy, the imposition of it. And so that's, but as far as having to take vacation or allowing to take vacation, you know, and you're not allowed to. And since we really don't know for sure when a writ will be dropped, it's very hard to plan for as far as that goes. And as I say, often it is in the autumn. Mostly it's in the autumn, but there's a range there of over a period of about a 2-month period. And so but you do have to take an unpaid leave.
Thank you. I will go to Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. Just trying to figure out how to word things because I don't want to be that guy, but it's one of those things for me where it's, you know, I personally, I feel the timing and optics of this may be an issue for us. I think it may be slightly inappropriate for us to be talking about this given the elephant in the room as we've had our acting CAO recently nominated as the Liberal candidate, which is fantastic. We're glad to have him in that position. But I wonder, and again, I'm not against exploring it, but I just wonder if the timing and the optics of that is going to give us a little bit of an issue, at least from my personal point of view. I do agree with part of what Councillor Rigger said as far as vacation and being able to do what you would like with it. I think I have no problem whatsoever with that. Rescinding the whole policy, I will absolutely vote against that. I think there's a lot of good parts about that policy. But again, I don't know, it's a little touchy for me and I'm not quite sure that I would like to get into this at this moment. But I guess it's the will of council as to what we'll end up doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I wish I had more time to reflect on this because I thought we were just kind of reviewing the policy and we weren't going to be having a motion about kind of rescinding it in total. So again, kind of off the cuff, I guess I'm looking at it from a taxpayer's perspective. I think there was good points actually mentioned by all councillors that have already spoken. But from the taxpayer, I guess I struggle with paying somebody to, like, again, I guess there's just a lot of questions where, if you can't be working if you're campaigning. So are we planning on paying someone to campaign and not to work? So I think from it as an, someone that's using taxpayers' money to pay an employee, I think that needs to be looked at. I also have questions around, what other government agencies, it sounds like maybe we're the only one with a municipal bylaw, but what do government employees do? Like, do they continue to get a paycheck and then take the time off and canvass and campaign? There's just a lot of questions. I think Councillor Donovan makes some really good points. The timing isn't ideal. I think our acting CAO knew about this policy when he put his name forward, so it's not like it's a surprise, but I think addressing it now after the fact does, it's unfortunate that we couldn't have had this discussion maybe prior to, because then it wouldn't have felt so biased. But yeah, I just have a lot of questions about it. I definitely think that if we have an employee that has the vacation time and is willing to take the vacation time, they are more than, entitled to use their vacation time as they see fit. And I don't think we have the right to tell them how to. But I think in terms of rescinding the entire policy, because again, if you're campaigning, that is what you're doing. You're not working. So I'm not sure why we'd be paying an employee to be working when they're not working. So, again, I see both sides, but I just feel like to rescind it tonight without a little bit more discussion. And also I'd like to hear about, again, what is out there and what do other government organizations do. But I do think the vacation point was a very, very good point. But again, I'm definitely not in favor of paying someone to work for us while they're working at another job, basically. Thank you.
And just to be clear, if a staff member is under our employ, naturally, and they're coming to work, then the roster of work outlined for them would be, the expectation is that they're here to work. So I think we can't make assumptions that that somebody is going to abuse the workplace and come and campaign if they're sitting in the workplace, or if they are in meetings with one another and that sort of thing. So I think there's a line there that we have to be careful of as well. Councillor Bigger, I'd like to also hear from, I know your light is on or was on when I hit next in queue, but I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to speak. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know that this bylaw, was passed in 2018. So it's due for a review.
Just a point of clarification, this is not a bylaw.
Okay.
It's not a bylaw, it's a policy. It's a policy that can be rescinded or dropped or changed.
Okay, this policy was approved in 2018. So it's definitely due for a review. I don't think that rescinding the entire policy is going to achieve the goal, but I do think that we definitely have to review this policy, because there's parts of it that don't even comply with the act as it is now. So there's as far as I know this policy does not say anything about vacation time, but I think that if anyone wants to use vacation time at any time, any of the employees, provided that there's, operating requirements considered, it doesn't matter what they're using their vacation time for, because nobody has the right to ask where you're going or what you're doing, or that's just common sense. But I do think that this does need a review, post haste. I just think the policy is extremely outdated. I will reiterate that I don't think that we need to scrap the entire thing, because then we're without anything. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Schreier, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was pleased to read the policy. I'd never seen the policy before because it's an employee policy in the handbook. So I too agree that to impose on people's vacation time is overreaching. And that, if somebody, I want to be clear, the vacation time belongs to the employee. They're not working, they're not misusing vacation time in any way. They're entitled to that vacation time. If from the 1st of January, they start to accrue their vacation time, they're entitled to that. Whether they leave the employment or whatever, they're entitled to that vacation time. So it's not working on something else in taxpayers' money. That's earned vacation time. They've been here, they've worked, that's something that they're entitled to, their vacation. So I just wanted to make that clear. Now, if there's a labor lawyer that disputes that says they're not entitled to their vacation time, I'd like to hear it. But in my world, if you work and you accrue this vacation time, you're entitled to it. And you can use it whatever way you see possible. So what I feel the same way, like it's in this environment, it's harder and harder to get persons and people to seek public office. We know that, we see that all the time. And so impeding on somebody's vacation time is not right. So I would also, there are sections of the policy I do like. I think that they make sense to me. Like if you're not, you can't use your cell phone, your town cell phone when you're campaigning. Or so I would be I would be in favor of taking Section 6 out at this time because it's not clear that they can use their vacation time. So removing Section 6 at this point would allow us to let employees use their vacation time as they see fit. If they require more time, they would have to ask for a leave, and that would be an unpaid leave. If they extend their vacation period, the unpaid leave, that's their choice. If you're going to run for office and you have to take a couple extra weeks in order for a campaign, then you have to make that decision if you can financially afford that. That's not our decision to make. That's the employee's decision to make. So if they want to seek that, they would ask for a couple extra weeks. So that would be my support. And Mr. Baker, if he wanted to look at amending his motion to just remove Section 6 and leave the rest of the policy as is until we can do a further review.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not support removal of the policy completely, policy number 063, but I would further support a complete review by staff where they can review the existence in various other locations and see how that was approached by different people, and taking into account some of the concerns that were discussed here this evening. But I think it would be better to initiate a new motion referring it to staff for review.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you very much. Well, I certainly appreciate the heartfelt convictions and values that everybody expresses, and there's a lot of very important points being made. In terms of people being paid to campaign, I think it's a bit naive with respect if we imagine that there aren't people who are managing situations in their personal lives between 9 to 5, to be colloquial about it. People take personal phone calls and deal with personal issues all through the day. That's not to say that we have a staff full of people who are abusing the system. Just the contrary. I believe we have a great staff, as I'm sure most or everybody here would agree. We vest a high amount of trust in a lot of our staff to do their jobs. Clearly those jobs are getting done. because our town is growing and advancing and we're flourishing. Two things can be true at the same time. People manage the development of a new side business of their own. People manage, secondary concerns that would occupy most or all of their free time if they weren't at work. But while they're at work, they work. That just seems as plain as the nose on my face, as my grandmother would say. And I don't believe that we are, I don't believe we want to be responsible for, inadvertently, let's say, conveying a message that we don't trust people. I find that there's a lot of language in this policy, and I don't really want to get down into the weeds of it too much, that's fairly heavy-handed. I see stuff here like a Quispamsis employee who is on leave of absence while seeking election or appointment to any elected office cannot use any Quispamsis resources during that time, fair enough, or act in a manner that could reasonably give rise to a presumption that they are using Quispam resources during the leave period. That is incredibly ambiguous. Who decides that? What's the measurement of that? How do you appeal that if someone says you're doing that and you say, no, I'm not? At the very beginning, policy statement item number 1 says, Quispamsis recognizes the right of town employees to participate in political activity balanced against the town's legitimate interest in having a municipal government service, a term I've never ever heard even, that both is and appears to be impartial. Who decides what appears to be impartial by the town? Point 2 says all town employees are entitled to vote and attend all candidate meetings and engage in political activity subject to the political activity provisions herein. We don't, where are we to issue the Charter of Rights and Freedoms tells people that they're allowed to go to political activities and vote for who they like. I think this is, to say, I agree with the deputy mayor, there's overreach in this, and I'm perfectly fine with the idea that it needs to be revised, but I stand by my motion to rescind this and start again, if that's what has to happen. I do not believe that there is enough meat on the bones, let's say, for this to stand. If someone can help me understand the problem that led to this being created so that I can have some context, I would be glad to reconsider that. It's not up to me to rescind it anyway. Of course, council would have to vote to do that, but I'm unwilling to rescind the motion at this time. So from my perspective, we should at the very least, I appreciate the notion of eliminating the vacation versus mandated unpaid leave provision and removing that, and I can see that generally speaking there's a general sense that that's probably a good idea. But I just say back to the drawing board, friends. That's what I say. And so rise or fall, for me, the motion stands as it is.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Councillor Olson, please.
No,
Was that accidental? Okay. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought, I guess during our tenure in terms of looking at council, I was under the impression that there's a number of government employees that aren't allowed to run for election unless they get, I just feel like this was kind of somewhat of a surprise in terms of, the motion. I'm not comfortable making a snap decision on it. I think what Councillor Donovan had said really resonates with me. Just the timing and the optics isn't great, and I really wish we could have had this discussion a number of months ago. But I'd really like to have, to Councillor Olson's point, I'm not comfortable voting on this without more information. Just because, it's my understanding that, not just anyone is allowed. I thought that there were certain government employees that weren't even allowed to run for.
I believe, I could be corrected on this, it's provincial and federal.
Municipal staff are not allowed to run for municipal council.
Right.
Because there's a conflict of interest there.
Right.
Municipal staff, just like staff in other private businesses, are fully allowed to run for provincial and federal political office.
Other government.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I would like to just get some clarity from staff before voting on anything.
We imposed it without any clarity from
Well,
staff.
I wasn't around in 2018, so if someone could tell us maybe what precipitated this, but I'm assuming there must have been a reason, that it probably just didn't come out of nowhere. The issue is that the policy is still an active policy, and now we have a bit of a bias and a conflict. So I don't think any of us can look at this without, it's very hard to look at this without a bit of a bias because of the situation we're in. So anyway, I'd be more comfortable getting staff to provide us with a bit more clarity in terms of what other people are doing, what's the norm.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. I can guarantee you that that this policy wasn't created by a bunch of people in the back room, because everything like this we refer to our solicitor, and it would have been researched and introduced to council as a whole, and council approved it. Whether it was unanimous or whatever, it was approved as a policy of council. Now, I think it's important that we review it all and find out what is maybe a bit overreaching, but that there's more information out there that can help us review this.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you to everybody. I think whether this passes or fails, we need to have change very quick, because the writ's going to drop soon. So this can't wait till the next meeting. So whether this passes or fails, people have made their comments. It needs to be redone really quickly, either way, because even if it passes, we've heard many people say that. To me, I don't care what you do on your time off, and time off doesn't mean vacation. If you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, do whatever you want. You don't have to quit your job at the Ritz. So I'm okay with you're not allowed to, which I'm going to say is common sense. You're not using your computer, sending it out and stuff like that. So that part I'm okay with, but there's definitely an appetite to change some of this stuff. So whether it passes or fails, something needs to be done, but like tomorrow to get this, because we've got a person here that this affects, and should we have looked at this long ago? Probably, but I guess we didn't have the same conversations. Probably. So whether this passes or fails, we have to have something done real quick, and I don't know how that's going to get done. So, but I think there's some major flaws with it personally. I think last time was a 3-week writ. It was quick.
So right now we've got a motion on the table to rescind employee policy 63. We can have the vote on that, and then another motion can be made following that. Councillor Bigger, last comment.
Yeah, this will be my final comment. I've heard a couple of people mention their concern about the timing and the optics, and notwithstanding anyone in our staff who would avail themselves of the electoral process, that just to me is moot point. I don't understand. We're not talking about letting people use town resources when they're not supposed to. We're not talking about providing people money that they haven't earned. We're not talking about letting people use vacation time that they're not owed. I don't see what the timing problem and the optics problem is. We're in a pre-election season, and people are lining up according to what they believe and who they want to support and what values matter to them. And that's just where we're at. I think the argument could be made that to delay this could show just as much of an optics issue, based on what Councillor Miller just pointed out about how time is probably short before a writ gets dropped. And if we have a policy that is clunky and ineffective, as I say, however well-intentioned its inception was, then I think that we could be, in danger of perhaps an optics problem there. And I take what Councillor Olson says to heart about how this was crafted and created, and no doubt it was after some sober reflection by some very serious people. But I would point out that in the agenda of October 16th, 2018, There is no correspondence attached to the item. There's no rationale provided. There's no background or context. There's just the policy and a vote. And that's all that happened. I wanted to find out some background, and when I wrote the clerk and asked, that's what I was provided. There is no other background. So I don't understand how something that leaves such a deep footprint on the aspirations of our staff to seek an office that we occupy by virtue of the campaigns that we have conducted to be elected. I don't understand how it came to be when there's no history of a problem that I'm aware of, there's no rationale that I can find, and I believe we need to rescind this and start again.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to wrap up my opinion on this by saying after 6 years of being installed, this is the first time it's come before council for a discussion. So all I can say is that it's been used in the past, and all of a sudden we're looking at throwing it away. So I still think that there should be a review.
The motion on the table, rescind employee policy number 63, bearing in mind that one of the items on that regarding vacation time, as Deputy Mayor Scryer has pointed out, that that is not an area where we have any business entering into. That is certainly operational and personal both at the same time. So if there are no further comments, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I guess in saying that, if you're saying that, which I agree, we shouldn't be delving into that. If it's not written down, what is stopping somebody from going out and taking their vacation out of the campaign? Because I don't see it in there. So, and you've just said yourself that we shouldn't delve into that, and we're not. There is nothing right there that says that they cannot do it. Maybe we need something that says that they can, but unless I'm missing something and somebody is in the back room somewhere saying, oh, you can't, then I don't know what the issue is. Does that make sense? I mean, it makes sense to me, but I don't know.
Ms. Brandon.
Within the policy, it clearly states that they must take an unpaid leave. That in itself is the fact an unpaid leave is an unpaid leave. There is no vacation time used for an unpaid leave. It's in the policy.
Item 6.
We will take the vote. Motion moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Thompson to rescind employee policy 63. Please vote now. Motion carried 4-3. Against, Councillor Donovan. Whoops, that went off my screen. Could you read the names, please?
Yes, I can.
Councillor Donovan, Councillor Luck, and Councillor Olson. Thank you. Moving on to item 10B, bylaws. There are, 10. You wanted to say something about?
Well, it was just regarding what Councillor Miller said about if we've rescinded it, now we need to move fast.
We've already gone through that, so it's been rescinded, so that would have to be a new motion.
But that's what I'm saying.
Are you making a motion?
Sure.
Okay, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, sorry. I would make the motion that, I don't know if it's staff or whoever, would work to recraft the employee policy regarding politics as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Donovan. So Councillor Donovan has just moved that, what exactly? To recraft policy 63?
It wouldn't be policy 63 anymore. It would just be to recraft a staff political policy.
Perfect, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan. Councillor Olson, seconding? Seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question,
Moved by Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Olson.
moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify the distinction, as I understand it, is that this was not a policy developed by staff, policy 63, but rather was developed by council. I wasn't here at the time. So can anybody confirm for me if that's the case? I just want to understand the distinction between what we're moving towards now versus what was in the past.
Councillor Miller, Olson, myself, and Thompson were here. I have no recollection of how that was initiated.
Okay. But to be clear, the motion is for staff to work on a
That's
policy
correct.
related to political activity. Thank you.
On the question, Councillor Miller.
I was just gonna say, I do recall that staff at that time came to us with the recommendation. So, but again, you'll see it, then we can vote for it. I think everybody kind of heard what people want and don't want, so we'll go from there. Thanks.
Councillor Olson.
I was just going to say, Your Worship, that every policy that we work on as a council is usually brought to and researched by staff beforehand.
That's correct. Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment that, and it's probably redundant, but when we say staff, I'm assuming staff will consult with the appropriate, like, employment lawyers or our lawyer or someone to make sure that, you know, we have the right information.
Thank you. On the question, were you able to get that typed up?
I'm having some issues.
Okay.
with eScribe, so if you just bear with me for a minute.
Technical difficulties.
You can verbalize it, yes. This is not working. So,
Okay, so I'm going to give the clerk an opportunity to write down the motion since our technology here seems to have dwindled a little bit. So the motion is to have staff, perhaps through our Human Resources Office, recraft the policy for staff running in elections and to bring it before council. And it was moved by Councillor Donovan and seconded by Councillor Olson.
the vote will appear.
Okay.
The motion will not.
Okay, so everyone knows what the vote, or what the motion is? Is the vote up?
Okay, no, it won't. My
Okay,
apologies.
so the vote will not come up either. So those who are in favor of the motion, please. Go ahead, Lisa.
Staff to work on new policy regarding political activity and return to council for review.
Those in favor, please raise your hand so I can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in favor. Those opposed, please raise your hand so I can count them. 2 opposed. The opposed are Councillor Bigger and Deputy Mayor Scryer. Moving on to item 9C, correspondence from Councillor Miller on KVO ACES. Councillor Miller, I don't know if you wanted to make a motion on that so that we could proceed on that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a real quick background on the motion, if that's okay, Your Worship. So, for those that aren't aware, the government had some funds that were being allocated to KV Oasis, and we took those funds on behalf to administer to KV Oasis. And on behalf,
Just hold on 1 second. I have 2 staff members that are just
I'm sorry.
entering.
Sorry.
One anyways, so. Thank you. So this is the correspondence from Councillor Miller on KV Oasis, and we are going to have a motion on that. You wanted to give an introductory to that?
Yes, so I would move that the legal fees that the town of Quispamsis incurred in the reallocating of the funds given by the federal government, that we approach Rosse to get our share, to pay their share of these legal fees to administer the funds for our regional. Yeah. Pardon me? Yes, for the Better Safer Building Communities Grant. Yeah.
For the Better Building Community Grant.
The clerk and ACTCO will correct my wording.
It's been moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Donovan on the question. No, it was Councillor Donovan. On the question, motion is to request a share funding for the legal cost when building when organizing the distribution of the Building Better Communities Fund, which Quispamsis has taken on with Rosse to share that cost. On the question, seeing there are none, Councillor Olson.
Just a clarification, should we note in there that the federal funds, there were federal funds that were utilized, administered by the town?
So the Federal Department of Public Safety, Building Safer Communities funds granted $800,000 in order to be used for building safer communities within or through the OASIS program. We paid for some upstart legal fees, and Councillor Miller is asking for some of that to be shared with Rosse. On the question, is the voting up, Lisa? So the voting is working now, so would you please vote now? Counselor Thompson. Are you in favor or against? Motion carried 7-0. Item number 10 is bylaws. There are none. Item number 11, new business, Ritchie Lake Condition Assessment and Lake Management Plan, RFP number 2024 TQ 05-4, Consultant RFP Award. Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that the town award RFP number 2024 TQ 05-4, Ritchie Lake Assessment and Management Plan to the Fundy Engineering Limited for an upset fee of $68,123 plus HST, and further the project costs that exceed the allocated budget of $30,000 be derived from unexpended operational budget or from the reallocation of 2024 operational reserves, excuse me.
Thank you. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question. Councillor Bigger.
No.
No? Okay. Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I must express that I'm disappointed that we've applied twice for funding for Ritchie Lake. We know that Ritchie Lake is important to our town and that we need to monitor it for sediment and see what's happening in that lake. So again, I say I'm disappointed that we've never received any funding, considering that the Department of Environment oversees our lakes and rivers, and it's not a provincial. We don't oversee it at all. So but we value that lake, and so we're saying we're going to move forward with this motion to make sure that our lake is protected. We can look at the sediment levels, the runoffs, fertilizer being used, whatever may affect that little lake, as Quispamsis is named after that lake. So I do have one question after that rant. I wanted to know, when I look at the quotes or the tenders and the dollars amount, so this would be to the engineering department. I know that in the price, Funday Engineering, they only have 450 hours of work to complete such project. And the other engineering companies quote 613 hours and 665 hours. And that Hilton actually comes in lower with extra hours. They're coming in at $136 an hour. And Fundy's coming in at $174 an hour, which I find a little high, but I'm not in that business. So I just would like an explanation of how there can be such a variance in, if they're meeting everything we've asked them to do, how there could be such a variance in the amount of hours that they've put in their quote.
Thank you, Your Worship. When we broke down the proposals and we looked at the technical proposals and the financial proposals, the values that the Deputy Mayor is quoting are average unit prices. And what we found is that you would find, say, a firm that has a lower per hour cost with higher hours. What they had done is, when we looked at the breakdown of who was doing the work, they had more junior staff doing more time than senior staff doing the equivalent amount of time. So you would be equating it on so you get what you pay for. So if we could get a management plan written by a senior consultant, and they do it in, say, 40 hours, but you have a junior engineering and it takes them 80 hours to write the same report. So those are the types of things that we looked at. We also looked at the level of effort we gave them a range of activities and expectations. How they chose to achieve those is their methodology, and that was part of the process of reviewing that methodology. So, for example, if we say we want to know what is the sediment level in the lake, or what is the oxygen level in the lake, one of the firms said, well, we'll introduce two series of 3 tests at 3 locations. Whereas another firm would say, well, we'll put a buoy in that has continual monitoring for X number of hours. And somebody that says, we'll just go to the local Department of Health and get their records. So those types of things, it goes back to that level of effort of how they would do it. So it all impact the number of hours of what particular staff was doing what particular level of work. So we had to go back and then look at the methodology and making sure that what we felt was important was reflected in the proposals. And in the funding proposal, they seem to have a significant more allocation to the public input, the opportunities for public consultation. They have, a proven track record from our work with them with respect to assessment and monitoring, which we felt was more important in this particular situation to say, what kind of shape is the lake in now? What are the challenges to that lake? And the back half being the ultimate jurisdiction to which you refer. Some of the firms put a lot of effort on jurisdiction when we the Director of Community Services and myself have placed so many phone calls. We know where they're going to go with this. We've had a couple of them that said, well, we're going to try to link the Ritchie Lake to well consumption, which at this stage is really not an issue for us because we've already had a hydrogeological study that says the groundwater in Quispamsis is a direct correlation between the river and the water table. So reading between the processes, looking at the evaluation, we did recognize that yes, there's an higher average cost for less hours, but the quality and the type of information that we'd be receiving we felt was more important for the town to receive at this stage of the game.
Follow-up. Thank you for that explanation. That really helps. The one other recommendation is to maybe have a council member as on the steering committee. Is that something that you would want a motion for?
Well, again, this is an opportunity for council, if council chooses to get involved. I know that some council members have the time, some councils may not. Perhaps it would be a suggestion that, if anybody's interested, to let the mayor know, and then they could be, appointed either through the nominating committee, or if there's only one person, come directly. I think it's important, any town initiative, that you have some level of champion on the political body for whatever reason. And I think this is a prime example that if the town is committed to the protection and seeing Ritchie Lake as a strategic or important item, it would carry a lot of weight having a council member on that particular steering committee. The same way that we, when we go through the budget process, we're looking for, councilors to ensure they understand, what the asset management plan looks like and make sure there's buy-in for, a recreation master plan, all those things. I think this is important that we have at least a sitting member would not necessarily be a chair or, a liaison, but it's to make sure that there's some aspect of the politics is reflected in that membership of the steering committee, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Logier. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. And I did have Councillor Olson come to me actually today and expressed interest that he would like to be on a steering committee. But again, as Mr. Logier identified, we'll go through the nominating committee. Councillor Olson. Okay, we have a motion on the table moved by Deputy Mayor Schreier, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Okay. Are you in favor, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm just, yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Motion carried 7-0. Item 11B, Works Department Facilities.
Your Worship, may I put a second motion forward that consideration for be sent to the nominating committee for a steering member to sit on such committee? On the steering committee, thank you.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Deputy Mayor's yes. Motion carried 7-0. Item 11B, Department Works, Department Facilities Strategic Review, Staff Report from Director of Engineering and Works. And that was uploaded to eScribe on Monday. And there is a motion there. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. I move the town proceed with the call for an RFP for qualified consultants to conduct a comprehensive operational and facility needs analysis for the Quispamsis Public Works Operations buildings and support facilities, and the recommendations be brought forward to Mayor and Council for future budget considerations in future budget years. The RFP costs are to be drawn from the current capital budget item for Public Works building renovations.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to our Director of Engineering. Knowing that this building's well over 40 years old, would it make sense to start building in the back, and when that's done, to knock this down or just use parts of it?
Through you, Your Worship, that's the whole point of this study. We're looking at whether there's some feasibility in retaining the building for whether it's an engineering depot or for the public works side, maybe for small equipment, paint, things like that. It's really used its usefulness and it served its purposes over the few years that we've had it, being few 40. But it would be not. I'd be lacking in my job responsibilities if I didn't point out that this is going to be something that's going to be facing us in our front of our nose and in the immediate or near future. And I recognize the fact that a $5, $6, $7, $8 million expenditure is not something that's going to be sold to council in the first year. So I wanted to have plenty of lead up so that we're aware of what we're doing, what the structural needs are, what the operational needs are. Even something as simple as saying we want to convert our fleet to EVs. We don't have the capacity at this building to even maintain EV vehicles. We don't have the charging facilities. COVID has taught us a terrible lesson on respecting our staff and their safety and their personal space and things like that, and that's not reflected. We had to go to a whole separate building. If it hadn't been for the Civic Center at the time, we would not have been able to meet COVID requirements. And our public works staff takes pride in the fact that while people have the opportunity to work from home during COVID, these people are on the front lines every single day. Our role as first responders in the community is taken seriously. And I think it's important for me to bring this forward to council on a to make sure that it's reviewed as a strategic item. I can't. Sometimes I think we should be having council go down and have a quick tour of that facility, because I think if anybody here said, well, I have to work in that particular environment, they wouldn't be working, and we have some staff there that are dedicated and they're working in conditions that a lot of places they wouldn't be working in. So I think this is appropriate. I think it is not committing us to any particular immediate large expenditure in the immediate short term. I think we may have an opportunity to look at personal health and hygiene in the short term, and that may be something that will bring to council in the short term budget. But I think an operational review is severely needed, Your Worship. So.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to reiterate what the Director of Engineering has said. I've been down to that building and reviewed it during good times and bad. And not only do we need to improve the working facilities for the employees there, we have to invest in proper storage facilities for our equipment, because a lot of it is outside and exposed to the weather, especially during storms and that. And it's not the proper way to deal with that sort of equipment. There's a lot of money invested there, and we want to protect that also, along with our employees, obviously.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. And yes, and I've been down many a time, and I've had discussions with our town treasurer, and the message that keeps coming home is asset management. And this is just one example of looking after our assets. And whether they're buried in the ground or whether they're on top of the rooftops, we are getting better at it, but we have to make sure that as we go into each budget season, that asset management is top of mind. So on that, we have a mover, Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Nominating committees' recommendations for housing needs assessment committees. Staff report from Assistant Town Clerk. So if we could have the motion on that, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I'd move that council accept the recommendations of the nominating committee as proposed.
It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item 11D, Gold Rush Drive Extension Subdivision, PID 248716, Atlantic Precast Concrete Limited, Final Subdivision Plan, Council Assent. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make a motion the council grant assent to the Gold Rush Drive Extension Subdivision Plan, subject to execution of a subdivision development agreement with the town. So the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration with the province.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 12, reports. You've had an opportunity to look at those. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I just have a question, just under Pro Kids. There's a thank you letter. It actually had recently come to my attention from a community member that it appears, and it was confirmed actually, that we don't have a member for this yet. We did approve one, and I'm not sure where they are or like when we plan on replacing them if they're not there. But I'd just like a little bit of an idea.
Sir, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I was just going to mention, it hasn't come to the nominating committee that I'm aware of, and myself, and that the recommendation hasn't come to us. So if there's something that needs to happen.
Okay, no, I believe you. I was like 100% sure that's okay. Okay, no problem. But I do think that it's something that, I do think it's a very important committee, and I know the nominating committee has their hands full a lot of the times, but I do think this is something that we need to get done as soon as possible so we can have the proper representation on that board. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy has just said that we will move forward on that tomorrow. Thank you. Councillor Bigger.
The comment I wanted to make is not related to the Pro Kids file, but I will say that I recall that Pro Kids was a committee on which we were. Yes, we were. Yeah, okay, looking to have somebody. I just wanted to say, it's not in the reports, but I thought it would be appropriate to congratulate our sister municipality, St. John, on the reopening of their beautiful waterfront, and it's pretty exciting over there. It's officially opening, I believe, this week coming up, but it's sort of unofficially been opened and very cool. A long wait. So I just want to say congratulations to all the hard work that's been done by staff there. And of course, I'm sure everybody will take the opportunity to get up there and enjoy it.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Moving on, business arising from Committee of the Whole. 13A, Town Clerk position appointment. Ms. Emerson.
Through your worship to council, looking for approval for council to approve Lisa McGinnis to the position of town clerk under the Local Governance Act effective August the 1st, 2024.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I wasn't a question, it was just a comment. I think Lisa's done a great job, and I think she will serve our town well. So I just wanted to say thank you for her for putting her trust in us to continue in this position, or to start this new position, I guess. So thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Deputy Donovan. Councillor Donovan took the words right out of my mouth. I just wanted to congratulate Lisa McGinnis on her new appointment effective August 1st. And we haven't voted on it, but I want to congratulate her.
Thank you. And her predecessor was here for 41 years, so you've got a long road ahead of you.
We might have the AC fixed by then.
2067.
It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 7-0. And once again, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate Craig Thorne on becoming Quispamsis' first ever participant in the Olympics in Paris coming up in August. We've had certainly people in the refereeing and coaching, but never a participant. So we wish him well in the 110 meter hurdles, and we will all be rooting for him when the Olympics begin at the beginning of August. So I'm looking for an adjournment, please. Moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 7-0. Have a good night, everybody. Please drive safely. Watch the speed signs.